This was the worst case scenario for CJ and the Houston Texans with him being in year 3 with this organization. This is one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and they have one of the worst offensive play callers in Nick Caley. When you go back to year 1 with CJ, that was a historic rookie season. He did not look like a rookie on the field. He looked like a 10-year vet, got the football out quick, was throwing open wide receivers constantly. He got the most out of Nico Collins at that point in time. Nico Collins was seen as a number 2 wide receiver. Here comes CJ, has the best year of his career up to this point. They won this division. They won a playoff game over the Cleveland Browns. You have Tank Dell, also a rookie, Dalton Schultz, who was his tight end coming over from the Dallas Cowboys. The entire offense had life. They had a pulse. They actually had a scheme with their first-year offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick. And DeMeco Ryans got a lot of credit, and rightfully so. He helped turn this organization around with CJ. Then we go into year 2. Now, there's heavy expectations here because the moves they made in that offseason. You make the NFL playoffs. You won that playoff game over the Browns. You got bounced out in the second round by the Baltimore Ravens. But you bring in Stephon Diggs, a talented wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills, who was amazing with the Minnesota Vikings many years before, but he still had juice left in the game. You pair him up with Nico Collins, who was a true number 1 wide receiver at that point in time, and Tank Dell, this emerging number 2 wide receiver and was one of, if not the best deep threat on this roster. Pair that up with Dalton Schultz. And to make the offseason even better, you go out there and you make a trade to bring in Joe Mixon from the Cincinnati Bengals, this veteran running back that could catch the football out the backfield and could take more pressure off of CJ. So in year 2, you have a lot of people, myself included, many scouts, many analysts, they're saying, hey, watch out for the Houston Texans. They may be a Super Bowl contender in year 2. They didn't take that massive step forward, unfortunately. But at the same time, they didn't take this massive step back. You have a lot of people that came out. They said that CJ hit the sophomore wall. He was in a sophomore slump. But you look at the situation that he was in. The offensive line play was abysmal. He got sacked and beat up a lot last year. He was a top quarterback in the league in terms of getting hit and getting pressure and getting sacked in general. Next to Caleb Williams, who was number 1. He was number 2. On top of that, Nico Collins, he missed time last year dealing with a hamstring injury. So now Stephon Diggs is your number 1 target. No big deal. Tank Dell's now your number 2. But at this point in time, they were force-feeding Nico Collins. Bobby Slowick was getting him involved every single week. And you saw the connection there with CJ. But one thing that not too many people talked about, CJ was a one-read quarterback in many of those matchups last year. He was force-feeding Nico Collins, and it worked out. He'll just lock on to him. Then eventually later in the game, he'll get Stephon Diggs involved, and the same with Tank Dell. The play calling has a lot to do with that, but at the same time, we've seen CJ in the past at the college level, also in his rookie season, just lock on to Nico Collins. So when he went down with that hamstring injury, the offense is stagnated. In the past game, they ran the football a lot with Joe Mixon. They worked off a play action. The chemistry was not there with Stephon Diggs and with CJ. And you look at Stephon Diggs right now, working inside the slot with the Patriots. He's a very good wide receiver. He had some good moments last year, especially in the red zone, but it wasn't consistent. He goes down to ACL injury. At this point in time, Nico Collins, he is still out. So now your number 1 wide receiver is Tank Dell. And I go back to that game last year, Thursday Night Football. CJ was left on the field basically by himself. The offense had no rhythm. They had no pulse. He was getting beat up over and over again, and they lost to the New York Jets Thursday Night Football. But even though they had all those problems, they got Nico Collins back. The play calling got better the last 4 weeks of the season. They still won this division. And they won a playoff game over the Los Angeles Chargers. The defense had a great year last year. It's DeMeco Ryans. He's a great defensive head coach. Great defensive mind. Even dating back with the 49ers when he was their defensive coordinator, he was amazing against the run. He was tough against the pass. That's expected. But even with all those issues, Bobby Slowick still stepped up. They won that playoff game over the Chargers. They lost against Kansas City in the second round. A couple of weeks later, DeMeco Ryans made the decision to fire Bobby Slowick. And this is the same offensive coordinator that was getting head coaching interviews after year 1 with CJ. But you let him go. Now, I'm not going to come on here and act like I did not applaud this move at this point in time, but I also said be careful here. You don't know how good you have it until it's gone. You let Bobby Slowick go, who had a very good connection with CJ. And that was a massive mistake. You bring in Nick Caley from the Los Angeles Rams. Now, D'Amico Ryans is very close with Bobby Slowick on and off the field, and the same with Nick Caley. They all fall under the Kyle Shanahan tree. But Nick Caley comes over. This is a completely different offense. They don't have a scheme. Joe Mixon hasn't played a single down this season just yet. He is still dealing with that foot injury that he suffered this offseason. You no longer have Stephon Diggs. But you basically say, you know what, Stephon Diggs, you can leave in free agency. He goes to the Patriots. You draft 2 wide receivers and Jaden Higgins, and the same with Jalen Noel from Iowa State. But you still have Nico Collins. So in week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams, your defense is balling out. They only allowed 14 points on the day. You lost this game 9-14. You only scored 9 points against the Los Angeles Rams. You can see on the film that Nick Caley is called long developing routes down the field against one of the top pass rushes in the NFL from last season. Look at what the Rams did to Sam Darnold in the playoffs. So the scouting report wasn't there, but yet this was still a close football game because of your defense, and it came down to a fumble with the backup running back. You got a bunch of miscues in this matchup. CJ had a pass to Jaden Higgins. It went for an interception. It wasn't on CJ. Here comes Kobe Durant. He takes the football out of his hands. We go into week 2 here against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your defense is getting crucial stops over and over again. You're up in this matchup. But late in the game, your defense did give up the game-winning touchdown to Rashard White. You lose this matchup 20-19, but yet your offense still was not good enough. CJ missed a lot of passes in this matchup. He was 13-24 for 207 passing yards. He only had 188 passing yards in week 1. He was terrible against pressure. He could not recognize the blitz. He went blind against the blitz. He can't go out there and adjust his offensive line to certain pressures. He doesn't know where the blitz is coming from different angles. And this is a player that is now in year 3. Usually, when you have a quarterback in year 3, this is when they really take off. Instead, CJ is slowing down and he's regressing before our eyes. And you have a lot of people that make the excuses. The offensive line is bad. The play calling is horrible. But CJ doesn't know certain protections. He can't go out there and protect himself against the blitz. He can't slide protection to the left or to the right. And now defensive coordinators, they're picking on him because of that. You won this game against the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are one of the worst teams in the NFL, but you won that matchup 26-0. CJ had 2 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Against the Baltimore Ravens, 4 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 244 passing yards. But let's be honest here. Majority of their starters were out on the defensive end, and I was called a hater for calling that out. He had a good game, but he's going against second and third strings. That's not the standard here anymore. I'm sorry to tell you that. The Houston Texans have won playoff games in back-to-back years now. I expect for him to go out there against second and third string talent and put up games like this. But he should also be able to go out there against elite level teams like the Los Angeles Rams and to perform better, against the Jacksonville Jaguars and to perform better. But it hasn't been the case for him. And we'll talk about the Jaguars and the Colts here in just a second. But tonight against the Seattle Seahawks, that was icing on the cake. You lost this matchup 27-19, but that's not even half the story. CJ was 23 of 49, 229 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. He got sacked 3 times, but he got pressured on 51% of his dropbacks, which is ridiculous. That's how terrible this offensive line is. But the reason why I said that's not even the half of it, you may think that this was a close football game. Listen to this. They had 4 takeaways in this matchup. Their defense had 4 turnovers, and yet you only had 254 total yards against Seattle. A very good defensive team, don't get me wrong. But if you have 4 takeaways, you have to find a way to go out and to win that matchup. You just have to. And you only scored 19 points yet again. And it's not all on CJ, but he definitely deserves some blame. He's missing receivers in space when they're wide open. He just can't see them. And at the halfway point in this game, Nico Collins, he goes down with a head injury. I hope that he's okay. But now you're dealing with Jaden Higgins and the same with Jalen Noel. Christian Kirk, he wasn't able to play in today's matchup. He's an injury-prone wide receiver. And Dalton Schultz was the leading receiver at the tight end position. 9 catches, 98 receiving yards. They're simply not good enough to compete in the AFC. And many people may come out and they may say the AFC is wide open. That's true, but it's not wide open for the Houston Texans. In the last 2 years, you had the luxury with the Indianapolis Colts not having a good starting quarterback on the field. They didn't have a reliable guy. They now have Daniel Jones. You can say what you want to say about Daniel Jones. That team is 6-1 as I record this video. The Jacksonville Jaguars, a very inconsistent team. They're 4-3. They defeated the Houston Texans. And they pretty much went out there and they dominated the Houston Texans, if we're being honest here, especially with their defense. CJ got one touchdown in this matchup and was basically blown coverage to Nico Collins. If Tyson Campbell doesn't come down, they may not even score a touchdown in that matchup. These are teams in the past that the Houston Texans pretty much had as guaranteed wins in their division. That's no longer the case. You're third in your division. And this is a bad look for DeMeco Ryans. And I'm not saying fire DeMeco Ryans, but this offense has been stuck in place with him being the head coach. And he is a defensive head coach at the end of the day. I think that you running back with him for one more year. You fire Nick Caley after this season. I don't see why you would go out there and fire him at the halfway point in the season unless the quarterback's coach comes in, he calls plays, or the running back's coach. And you're still working with the same playbook, maybe with just a different ideology here. But your offense will still be what it is right now. You're 22nd in passing offense. You're 20th in total offense. It is what it is. But maybe he can bring in someone like Mike McDaniel from the Miami Dolphins because we know eventually he will be fired. You bring him over. He's a very good offensive coordinator, in my opinion. Very good pass game coordinator in the past. And we know that he would gel with CJ. Their personalities, they should be able to mesh together. But I really don't want to see DeMeco Ryans get fired. He's given up defensive play call duties because he wants to take more of a role on the offensive end. He's not calling offensive plays, but he wants to help out on the offensive end. And that's what most head coaches do. If they see one area struggling, they go to that area and they try to help in. They sit in on certain meetings. They try to work with the quarterback more. They try to build that relationship. But right now, it's not working. And even though I'm a huge fan of DeMeco Ryans, you hired two bad coordinators back to back in Bobby Slowick and the same now with Nick Caley. But this is a bad look for DeMeco Ryans all around. And the reason why I say, please don't go out there and just make a rash decision. He's doing his job on the defensive end. They're third in total defense, fifth in passing defense, seventh in rushing defense. They have very good defensive players in Danielle Hunter, Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry To'oTo'o. Will Anderson is one of the best pass rushers in the game with Danielle Hunter. Danico Autry is a very good interior defensive lineman. Your secondary is strong with Kamari Lassner, the same with Derek Stingley Jr. Look at how Derek Stingley Jr. struggled with Lovie Smith being the head coach and having a heavy influence with defense. Look at him now with DeMeco Ryans. He's become a star. Jalen Petrie inside the nickel cornerback position. Kalen Bullock at the safety spot. So the defense is not the problem here. That's his strong suit. If he can bring in the right offensive mind, the Houston Texans could be a dangerous team. But this is a lost year for them. And Nick Caserio, he deserves a lot of blame. If you're going to say fire DeMeco Ryans, they have to fire Nick Caserio as well. And I don't stand on that decision either. Nick Caserio has done a lot of good things with this organization early on. But as of late, he's starting to lose some speed on that fastball. You let Stephon Diggs go out into free agency when you traded a pick to bring him in. You traded Laramie Tunsil to the Washington Commanders. And for whatever weird reason, you have a lot of Houston Texan fans that come out and they say, I'm glad Laramie Tunsil is gone. He was still your best offensive lineman. And I'm going to die on that hill. He had a lot of penalties last season, dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, yes. But Laramie Tunsil was still your best offensive lineman. And you let him go to the Washington Commanders. You now have Ariante Ursary at the left tackle position. He hasn't been a good player this season. Then you have Titus Howard at the right tackle position. I said that Blake Fisher did not look good. He's not even a starter with this team right now. Juice Shrugs, he's not a good player. The same with Jake Andrews and Ed Ingram. Your entire offensive line is abysmal right now. It's terrible. And that is on Nick Caserio. But he's the same man that brought in DeMeco Ryans. He's the same man that drafted CJ. He's the same man that went out there and got Nico Collins. The same with Tank Dell. He's done a lot of good things. But if they move on from Nick Caserio, they may also move on from DeMeco Ryans. Does that solve your problems at the offensive line position? Everyone deserves blame here. DeMeco Ryans for hiring a bad offensive coach. Nick Caley being a terrible offensive coordinator. CJ Stroud regressing and not recognizing certain blitzes and going blind against the blitz. This offensive line just being terrible in general. It's just not on one person. And it's just time to be honest here. The Houston Texans, they aren't good enough on the offensive end. I don't see them making the NFL playoffs this year. I don't care how open the AFC is. It's not open wide enough for them. If two teams come out this division right now, it would be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. Can they turn things around? Yes, but they have a brutal schedule coming up. You had some give-me games here, and it was important to take advantage of that schedule. But unfortunately, the Houston Texans, they haven't done that. Your next game is against the San Francisco 49ers at home, the Denver Broncos, and the Jacksonville Jaguars yet again. Then you face the Tennessee Titans. That should be a win. Then you face the Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts, and then Kansas City on the road. That is a tough schedule for a team that has a terrible offensive line and a quarterback that is seeing ghosts, and he doesn't trust in this offensive line, and I don't blame him. But if I had to give one person majority of the blame, if I have to, it'll be Nick Caley. CJ has never looked like this before, not in year one, in year two. Now look at some of the play calls today against Seattle. You're calling long developing routes deep down the field against this pass rush. They're blitzing your quarterback relentlessly. Call some screens. Get the football out quick. He ran the football on second and short and third and short. Mind you, the Houston Texans struggled to run the football in this matchup. CJ was the leading rusher. He had 2 carries, 25 rushing yards. Nick Chubb had 5 carries, 16 rushing yards. Woody Marks, 10 carries, 15 rushing yards. Just run a QB sneak. Hell, even a fullback dive in that situation. Run a tight end sneak. That's what the Steelers do. Why are you running the football to the outside with Nick Chubb, who is a power back? Then you bring in Woody Marks, you run the same play. It's predictable. He did the same thing against the Los Angeles Rams late in the third quarter, and they punted the football. He's terrible as an offensive coordinator. But this is the sad state of the Houston Texans. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about CJ and the Houston Texans for the rest of this season? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.